Good day, class. This is Miss De La Torre, and at this point, let's go ahead and talk about the different Philippine environmental issues and the nursing practice. This lesson will focus on the Philippine environmental issues, pollution and healthcare, and the different environmental laws for nurses. With Philippine environmental issues, we'll try to describe five major environmental issues, and that may include air pollution, water contamination, plastic waste, deforestation, and climate disasters. We're also going to explain the different causes of these environmental issues together with their health consequences, and we'll try to evaluate the effectiveness of DNR policies and DOH programs associated with these issues. With pollution and healthcare, we'll try to enumerate five types of pollution that's associated directly with health activities, and that may include infectious waste, chemical disinfectants, and pharma residues. We'll also try to analyze how improper waste management affects disease transmission and regulatory compliance, and recommend best practices for DOH compliant waste segregation, treatment, and disposal. With environmental laws, obviously we'll be trying to cite different environmental laws associated with the different types of pollution that we can associate with health activities and interpret how these laws apply to nursing operations, including waste management and pollution control. Lastly, we'll evaluate the effectiveness of the Philippine environmental policies using enforcement and health outcomes. Last meeting, we've introduced this lesson by answering the guide questions associated with this opening scenario, where in July 2023, residents of Caloocan NCR lined up outside a public health clinic, and children present with severe cough and eye irritation is located nearby an open dump site that has been burning for 3 days. The nurse on duty has no PPE and no protocol and a waiting room full of patients. Some of your classmates get to answer and share their opinion related to these three guide questions. Like, first, what environmental hazard is most likely causing the symptoms? And I think one of your classmates mentioned that obviously it's the open dump site. Second question is that as the nurse, what is your first priority? Another classmate of yours mentioned that the first priority is to wear PPE and obviously assist the patients in line. And lastly, who is the responsible for this situation and how could it have been prevented? Your classmates also mentioned that it could be the community itself allowing the open dump site practice, but we could also take note that the local government also has a great responsibility to protect the community by regulating these open dump site operations. Now let's go ahead and jump into the major environmental issues that affects the Philippine health. Starting off with air pollution. It has been noted that here in the Philippines, this is the number one cause of premature death. In cases like Metro Manila and Cebu, they rank among the Asia's most polluted because of vehicle emissions, industrial fumes, and open burning. With water contamination, Philippines has been noted with around 57% of its rivers to be considered biologically dead, with Pasig River being declared as one. And that is because we're able to also realize and confirm that coliform bacteria is already present and detectable within our tap waters. Sources of water contamination and pollution includes industrial effluents and poor sanitation. With plastic waste, okay, it has been noted too that the Philippines is the third largest ocean plastic polluter, and that is associated with our heavy use of single-use plastics that makes their way into our bodies of water. Marikina and Laguna de Bay are actually heavily affected by this, and the microplastic has made their way too within our food sources, such as fish and seafood. With deforestation, it has been also shared during our biodiversity lesson that from 17 million hectares in 1900s, it's now down to 7 million hectares alone. And what are the implications of this? Obviously, deforestation leads to loss of watersheds and also leads to what? Increased floods and landslides that are now linked to malaria resurgence in Palawan and Mindanao because the more frequent flood is, the greater the area where mosquitoes carrying malaria can breed and thrive. With climate disasters, obviously, despite of the Philippines being known to really, experience typhoon every now and then, it's now getting way more frequently to the point that on the average, the country has been impacted and visited by around 20 typhoons a year, with Typhoon Yolanda last 2013 being one of the super typhoon noted to affect the country. This actually resulted into 6,300 plus deaths, and the flooding also has been noted to have caused leptospirosis and dengue surge, as well as hospital damage. Now, let's talk about the different causes and health consequences of environmental issues. Let's start off with the different root causes. First off is industrial emission. Cement plants like from that of Bulacan and oil refineries from Batangas actually acts as other or major industrial emission sources. Okay? That is because typically these power plants makes use of coal, which again, okay, emissions are being what released within the air itself and the adjacent environment. Transportation is also another root cause. Why? Because around estimate 1.2 million of motor vehicles are now running within the streets of Metro Manila, and most of these automobiles like jeepneys, tricycles, and trucks actually run on diesel, which again we all know makes use of fossil fuel that still is not that an a healthy alternative for energy because of the types of gases that it can release as it burns. Poor waste management is also another root cause because around 55% of barangay has been noted to follow proper waste collection. So that means we still have a greater number of barangays that do not follow proper waste collection, and some of them even make use of open dumping, which shouldn't be the case. We also take note of rapid urbanization as another root cause because these leads to loss of mangroves and wetlands, and again, alteration of these kinds of biomes can lead to what? Floods, urban heat islands, and resource depletion because the faster and the higher the number of migration of organisms from one area to another only entails what? Resource depletion. The larger the number of consumers, the faster the resources will get depleted. And that is also going to result in what? Increased waste production due to consumption. Agricultural practices. So what do we mean by agricultural practices being one of the root causes of different environmental issues? Agricultural practices like that or like those methods that makes use of chemical pesticides results into pesticide runoff that has been noted, okay, along Laguna Lake already, and the slash and burn practice in Mindanao and the Visayas. When you say slash and burn, if you're quite familiar with the concept of kaingin, so that's another agricultural practice that can also be considered a root cause or source of an environmental issue because when you do slash and burn, you are intentionally burning or incinerating a large portion of an agricultural land. And obviously, ashes coming from the burning crops and other biomass may directly affect air quality in that particular area or region. So that's one key thing about agricultural practices acting as root causes of environmental issue. Now let's talk about the different health consequences of these different um, sources of environmental concerns. First off is the respiratory disease, okay? And that's directly attributed to what? To air pollution. COPD, asthma, and pneumonia are actually one of the most common respiratory diseases that we can associate with air pollution and other types of environmental issue. Nine in top 10 causes, it's actually is the ninth in the top 10 causes of Philippine morbidity. Okay, so that means majority of the Filipinos suffer from these respiratory diseases and even causes their early demise. So that means they die commonly due to respiratory diseases. Vector-borne illnesses like dengue, it has been noted to reach around 406,000 cases in 2019. And malaria, which has been noted too to be re-emerging now in Palawan, has been linked to standing water and forest lost because of, again, deforestation and at the same time, continuous flooding. Waterborne diseases like cholera, typhoid, hepatitis A from contaminated water supply in urban and rural communities are also associated, obviously, with water pollution. Neurotoxic effects like lead and mercury exposure from mining, noted around the areas of Benguet and Mindanao, is causing developmental delays in children because lead and mercury can actually penetrate and seep within our tissues once we have direct contact with it. That's the reason why, as much as possible, it is advised to avoid, okay, having direct contact with materials having or containing lead and mercury. Heat-related illnesses, heat stroke surges during El Nino, and I think everyone will agree with this one, especially nowadays that we've been suffering from intense heat. Even our, cats and dogs at home can suffer from heat strokes because of what we're experiencing right now. And I think we're ac- we're bound to experience a long El Nino season this time of the year. So I think that explains why we're experiencing these humid and hot and dry season for quite some time already. Climate change pushing heat indexes above 42 degrees Celsius in Visayas. So like way before, I think early 2000s, you will never reach heat indexes of around 40 or even like 38 around that range. But right now, come 2015 or 2020, we're now even reaching around 42 degrees Celsius, and that's very, very, that's a drastic change when it comes to temperature. And we are quite familiar with the fact that different vectors of diseases tend to thrive in different places and area, and that includes what areas that are more humid, hot, because that is an area that is perfect for their breeding ground. So we can expect that it's more than just heat stroke, but it also is giving a more favorable breeding places for other vector-borne diseases, obviously, okay, to affect us. Now let's try to have a very quick check of this case study related with Payatas Dam site collapse and fire in Quezon City around 2000. So It has been noted that Payatas approximately receives 2,500 tons of waste per day. And when it comes to inhabitants living near it, there's around 80,000 informal settlers living nearby the area. In July 10, 2000, the trash mountain actually collapsed and it killed 218 people after heavy rains. It also has been noted, like last April 2023, that a major fire occurred there since methane gas fires burn regularly due to the amount of, waste that is present there. Again, imagine it's around 2,500 tons of waste per day. So there's like a hazard already with the trash mountain itself collapsing, plus the methane gas burning regularly. And then you also have 80,000 informal settlers living nearby it that what affects them directly through them having chronic cough, eye problems, and skin lesions because of their close proximity with waste. And it has been noted in a DOH study last 2002 that the rate of respiratory illnesses in Payatas is actually 3 times higher than those of the control areas. So obviously, the Payatas dump site is what? A hazard to living organisms, both plants, animals, and human beings near it, right? So what's the role of nurses in this particular area? Obviously, it has been advised that nurses could conduct community health assessment in this particular area and place respiratory diseases rather as what a priority in their triage. There should also be coordination with the DNR and the local government unit. And it's also advisable that they do epidemiological surveillances related to this area and do health education campaigns. Um, some outcomes and policy response in relation to this concern with payatas actually are the following. The establishment of the RA 9003 or the Republic Act 9003, which is noted as the Philippine Ecological Solid Waste Management Act that has been enacted in 2001. DENR also ordered the closure of the Payatas dump site, but the problem is that it's partially enforced. The MRF or the Material Recovery Facility and Composting Setup that has been advised of, not just simply in Payatas but even other areas. Though compliance with it is not 100%, it is still variable. And despite of some of these efforts, it's still been noted that the health outcomes here remains poor. Okay, but resettlements are ongoing so that these informal settlers can be relocated in a more safer area. I won't be asking you to do this think, pair, share anymore, but if you wish to answer this, you're free to do so. You may write your answer on your notebook. If you were the nurse assigned to a community near Payatas, what environmental assessment tools would you use and which government agencies would you coordinate with? So again, you're free to answer this one on your notebook, and if you want to, you can share it with me as well once we meet again, okay? So let's now go ahead and evaluate the different DNR and DOH health programs related to the environment. Mind you, you may notice like different asterisk tagging here in implementation and health outcomes. So you may refer to this legend here. If it's only one asterisk, then the implementation and the health outcome is limited. If it's two, then it's developing. If it's three, it's moderately implemented. If it's four, it's strongly implemented. And if it's five, then that means it's excellently implemented. So let's start first with the program, the Philippine Clean Air Act, which is again the Republic Act 8749. Well, obviously the agency associated with its implementation is the DNR, or the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, together with the Environmental Management Bureau. The goal of this Republic Act is to obviously reduce vehicle industrial emission, okay? So the air quality will be improved, okay? Now with the implementation, it has been tagged to be quite moderate because efforts to, do modernization in our public utility vehicles are ongoing already, but still we cannot see it to its full completion yet, not until and not unless all vehicles are already converted into a more technologically advanced and environmentally friendly versions. With the health outcomes, um, in Metro Manila, it still has the PM 2.5. What do you mean by PM 2.5, by the way? This actually refers to particulate matter, which measures around 2.5 micrometer. So what are these particulate matter? These actually are like tiny inhalable droplets of um, emissions, if I may say. Okay, these tiny droplets that can be inhaled by us human being because of its size, because it's 2.5 micrometers, sometimes it's smaller than that. Okay, they actually are product of combustion process. When we burn something, sometimes the tiny bits of what we're burning can reach this particular state where its size is so small, around again 2.5 micrometer, and this size actually is something that we can inhale and even reach our bloodstream. That makes it a what? Obviously a health hazard. And the goal is to have lower, if not zero, PM 2.5 within our breathable air. But in Metro Manila, it's still exceeding the World Health Organization standard. That means we still have lots of PM 2.5 within the breathable air in Metro Manila. And again, that's because there's lots of vehicles that uses what? Fossil fuel. And when you burn fossil fuel, one byproduct of it is again this PM 2.5 particulate matter. Okay? I'm not saying that this is only produced by, you know, fossil fuel combustion of different vehicle, but it also includes power plants, industrial emissions, wild fires, and even cooking or burning candles indoors. Those are actually some ways on how we can generate PM 2.5. Okay, and that's also the reason why we avoid open burning and incineration as much as possible of different waste generated at home, because that can pose a danger um, in our respiratory health, because that increases the production of PM 2.5. Now going back in Metro Manila, PM 2.5 or particulate matter 2.5 is still high, that it exceeds WHO standards. So what are the nurses' role in here in the uh, implementation and in the context of the Clean Air Act? Obviously, your role is to educate different individuals, especially the patients, on the air quality alerts. Okay, especially when it's kind of related with different respiratory health diseases or cases. Okay, so let's now proceed with the Pasig River rehabilitation. With the Pasig River rehabilitation, the agency associated with it is uh, P the PRRC. So I think obviously that's the Pasig River Rehabilitation. C, actually I forgot what does that mean, but it's a direct agency, okay, supervising the overall status of the Pasig River itself. It's in collaboration, obviously, with the DNR, and the main goal is to restore Pasig River. And actually, the implementation of this rehabilitation program has been noted to be very strong because the water quality of the Pasig River has improved starting 2020 to 2023. The indication that this is very good is because fishes starts to return in the river itself. That means it's starting to get viable already. Waterborne illnesses has been noted to be reduced near river itself. So what are like the nurse role here or nurse's role here? That is to monitor waterborne disease trends in the barangay and expect that again with the improving, okay, rehabilitation of the river, the waterborne diseases should also go what? Down. Okay? So let's now have the RA or Republic Act 9003 or the Philippine Ecological Solid Waste Management. So with RA 9003, obviously it's um, the DILG together with LGUs, which acts as the main agencies to implement this. Okay, and the main goal of this is to end open dumping, if as much as possible to have around 25% waste diversion. And unfortunately, though, the implementation is still weak because there's lots of LGUs that are non-compliant with RA 9003. It has been noted that there's lots of open dump sites that are still active, and this poses this poses risk, okay, in diseases within the communities near these open dump sites. So the nurse's role here is to uh, act as what source of education among communities. They can inform how waste segregation should be done. Okay, if you're going to recall the activity that we've had about waste audit, okay, well, obviously that is an example of how by practicing it, you yourselves within our university, you can also even share it with others too. Later on, I'm going to um, like teach you or like inform you. Most probably, you're quite familiar with this one already because you've had your own immersions at hospitals, right? So you might have seen this different color-coded bins already, but I'll just try to reinforce you and like most probably share other types of ways on how you can dispose of your medical waste too. Okay? But going back, the next program is we have here is the HCWM manual by the DOH. HCWM, if you're not yet familiar with that one, is stands for Healthcare Waste Management Manual, and this is implemented by the DOH and its CHDs within the different regions. So, what's CHDs? This stands for Center for Health Development, and it's like a mini version of DOH, but it's within regions. So each region has its own CHDs. Okay. So the main goal of the healthcare waste management obviously is to have or achieve safe healthcare waste disposal. And the implementation of this one is noted to be quite moderate because it has been tied with PhilHealth accreditation. So, ma'am, what do you mean by PhilHealth accreditation? Tied. This actually is quite great based on my own opinion because um, most probably whenever we check out different healthcare institutions, one of the main thing that we are noticing is that they have this PhilHealth accredited like tagging within them, right? So that means obviously they are recognized by PhilHealth, and that already says something about the reputation of the clinic or the hospital and the likes, right? They cannot, or a medical institution cannot be accredited by PhilHealth if they do not practice or follow the HCWM manual. Okay? So technically, the medical institution or the healthcare institution will not be given a license to operate, okay, by the CHDs and DOH if they are not going to follow the HCW manual. And obviously, PhilHealth will not accredited them, and who would want to visit a hospital or a medical institution that is not PhilHealth accredited, right? So that's the reason why obviously the implementation of this one is you know running great, but it could be further improved. Okay, because PhilHealth um, tied or collaborated with DOH, and obviously if hospitals are not going to follow this, if they're not going to dispose of their waste properly, then they won't be accredited by PhilHealth. Okay. As of now, there's like an improved compliance in accredited hospitals or already. So obviously, nurses working directly with hospitals should implement color-coded waste segregation. And with the last program, we'll be having the National Climate Change Action Plan. But this one, it is supervised by CCC or the Climate Change Commission. CCC obviously is the primary policy-making body of the Philippine government that's associated with tracking, coordinating, monitoring, and evaluating what? National climate change programs and activities. And the main goal of this program or plan is to build climate resilient health system, and it is still in its early stages, and since different LGU has varying capacity, it is expected that not everyone can follow through with it, but it is expected that um, everyone in the long run will be able to follow this through. Okay. um, when it comes to health outcomes, since this is an action plan that is just recently enacted, we're still trying to look into the long-term effect of this, but we're looking into the potential of this helping with improving disaster preparation in different areas. And we all know the lesser the disaster is, obviously, the lesser the affected patients will be. Okay. What are the nurses' role in this particular program or plan? Well, that is to participate in different disaster risk reduction planning too. Okay. Now, let's talk about the different sources of pollution that is generated by the health and nursing activities. I have six here. Then after this, we'll be talking about the different DOH compliant healthcare waste management system. Okay, we're actually almost done. So with the sources of pollution generated by health and nursing activities, it has been noted that the Philippine hospitals generate around 29,000 metric tons of hazardous health waste annually. And again, that's according to WHO DOH 2022. Only around 40% actually is properly disposed. Now, what are the different types of waste or hazardous health waste that we generate, and what are the sources, the risk, and the cases that are actually noted associated with it? First off is the infectious waste. The sources of infectious waste are sharps, blood-soaked dressings, and even microbiology specimens that are not properly disposed of. This has been noted in a case where improperly disposed syringes are actually seen in Manila Bay shoreline, according to DOH report in 2019. So what are the health risks if we are not trying to properly dispose of infectious waste? Transmission of hepatitis B and C and HIV to different healthcare workers and even waste handlers are very, very what? High. Okay. Another one is chemical disinfectant. So aside from infectious waste coming from sharps and these blood-soaked dressings and microbiology specimens, it has also been noted that different chemical disinfectants are not properly disposed of, and these include glutaraldehyde, formaldehyde, and chlorine solutions. It has been noted in a DNR 2021 report that disinfectant runoff from Makati Private Hospital is identified. Okay? Now, what are the risks of having chemical disinfectants unregulated, okay, and disposed of improperly? Obviously, mucosal irritation, chemical burns, and carcinogenicity. That is because formalin or formaldehyde is actually noted by the World Health Organization as an a group 1 carcinogen. Okay, and again, that's a group 1 carcinogen, meaning if you get exposed to it, okay, at a certain level, there is a high chance of you getting cancer out of it. Okay? So imagine infectious waste and chemical disinfectants. We all know that these shouldn't be what? This shouldn't be just treated like a normal waste. This should be properly managed. But unfortunately, there is still some, okay? There is still some medical institutions who are not capable of properly disposing of these kind of hazardous health waste. We also have pharmaceutical residues, and this includes what? Expired drugs, chemotherapy agents, and even endocrine disruptors. Ciprofloxacin, this is an antibiotic, obviously, has been detected in Laguna Lake. This is according to LLDA and what? UP. They've studied and checked and are able to detect the presence of ciprofloxacin in Laguna Lake in 2020. And obviously, what is the risk of this? You're trying to introduce antibiotic resistance in waterways already and even do hormonal disruption of different aquatic fauna. Okay? That may even reach our table. Okay? So imagine sometimes you're wondering why are you suffering from these kind of, let's say, diseases without you knowing that this kind of diseases, even if you're not taking, let's say, for example, you're mindful of your antibiotic consumption, but still you're able to develop these kind of antibiotic resistance related diseases. And that's because without you knowing, you're actually consuming, um, you know, food coming from what? Potentially contaminated sources. So, what is the root cause of this? That is because we weren't able to properly dispose of our what? Waste. Radioactive waste. When we say radioactive waste, we're actually talking about what? X-ray contrast agents, especially those that we use for, what do you call this one? The X-ray that allows you to have, ano ba? X-ray contrast agents makes use of like special ink or dye, okay? And sometimes, okay, those are not properly disposed of. Even nuclear medicine in the form of I-131 and TC-99. I-131 obviously is iodine 131 and TC-99 is technetium-99. These are used obviously in nuclear medicine, but for detection of thyroid disorder, but sometimes it's also not properly disposed of. And we all know from the term itself, radioactive. Radioactive materials should not be what? Improperly disposed of because they emit radiation. Okay? And this primarily pose a higher risk to individual for what? Getting cancer because of radiation exposure. Okay? Case related with this one is actually the PNRI regulation gap, um, since many clinic actually lack radiation waste protocols. And this has been noted in a CHED audit that has been done in 2022. Mercury. This is another what? Type of health waste. Why? Because there are different medical apparatuses that still make use of mercury, and that includes thermometers, sphygmomanometers, and even dental amalgam. But I think it has been banned already. That's the reason why we're using digital thermometers right now and no longer using what? Um, mercury thermometers. Even in different institutions like laboratories and all, it's highly uh, discontinued already because mercury has been noted to not just simply poison waste handlers, but even cause neurological damages. General solid waste. Well, obviously, this is more of the common type of waste, but still kind of related with different health institution. For example, food, packaging, and the single-use PPEs like mask and gloves. What are the potential risk of this? So this uh, is a potential for pest infestation, malaria and dengue vector breeding because sometimes these packaging and single-use PPEs, when not properly disposed of and you know were able to act as containers of water, can be what? An additional mosquito breeding ground, and not to mention visual pollution. It has been noted by UNEP in 2021 that COVID PPE waste surge, which is around 1.6 billion masks a day, that has been globally discarded. So imagine the amount of plastics generated because of that. So that contributes to what? To plastic pollution. Now, these are the different waste segregation color code as per DOH Department Circular 2021-0598. And I believe everyone is quite familiar with this already, but I'll just try to review this. Again, always remember if it's yellow, This is what? For infectious waste, and that includes blood, body fluids, pathological waste, sealed sharps, and isolation waste. If it's orange, it's highly infectious. Then that means what? Our microbiology samples like lab cultures, dialysis waste, blood products, and discarded live vaccines. For black, that means you are to dispose their what? Only chemical and pharmaceutical waste. So that includes expired drugs, disinfectant bottles, mercury devices, and chemotherapy waste. For green, it's general and non-hazardous. So that's food waste, office paper, recyclable packaging, and non-contaminated items. And for red, obviously, it's radioactive. So your nuclear medicine, radioisotope waste, X-ray film and fixed solution, and PNRI regulated items should go in there. Now, how do we treat and dispose of the following? So we have different methods, and that includes steam sterilization, or once you try to use the autoclave, and that is ideal for infectious microbial waste. This is the most common in the Philippine hospitals, and it actually kills pathogen at around 125 degrees Celsius per 15 minutes. And that is also the reason why we do autoclaving in our laboratories back at school, right? Whenever we perform microbial or microbiology related activities. Okay, because it's capable of sterilizing or killing pathogen at such a high temperature, and that is DOH approved. Okay, we also have chemical disinfection. That includes liquid infectious waste. We make use of chlorine solution that is around 0.5%, especially for blood or body fluid spills. And also that's DOH approved. Incineration, yes, we still are capable of doing that, but that is strictly regulated. It should only be done in pathological, sharps, and pharmaceutical types of waste. Okay? And take note, it must use a controlled air incinerator because open burning is prohibited under Republic Act 8749. And then secure landfill, again, landfill is different from open dump site. Okay, always remember that. Landfill is safer than an open dump site. An open dump site doesn't have coverings within it, so that means all the what do you call this one? All the waste are directly thrown on the ground, and that poses a higher risk of the waste leaching towards the groundwater and even adjacent or nearby bodies of water. Landfill, they do have covering or like a layer before the waste and the soil. Okay? Landfills are engineered, okay, so that all waste extracts coming from them will be, deposited in a certain area where these um, leachate can be further treated. Okay, open dump site doesn't have that. Another thing is that typically landfills, since methane and other gases that are naturally produced during decomposition of waste are flammable, landfills have its own like way on how to get those air or gases rather and direct it to a safer area. Okay, open dump site doesn't have it, and that's the reason why open dump site tend to have fires every now and then. So I hope you get what I mean here. Going back with secure landfill, this is only applicable for chemical treated solid waste, but this requires permit, must be lined, and again, that lined meaning, the covering between the soil and the waste itself. That's the one that's what we're referring to here. And then the leachate controlled. That means the extract of waste coming from the landfill should be controlled and again, like placed in a certain container that is to be treated further. Okay? So it is approved by DOH and even the ANR. We're almost done. Let's just try to have a very quick rundown of the different environmental laws that affects the Philippine health sector. So we have the Republic Act 8749 or previously 1999. It's the Philippine Clean Air Act. This prohibits open burning and regulates emission from vehicles, industries, and hospitals. So everything related with air, it's under with Philippine Clean Air Act. So here, hospitals must stop medical waste incineration unless certified, and nurses should report violations if they've noticed one. The penalty for this one is around 10,000 to 1 million fine plus imprisonment. Okay? And that is again overseen by DENR and EMB or Environmental Management Bureau. Okay? We also have um, the Philippine Clean Water Act. So if we have Clean Air Act, we also have Clean Water Act, and that was RA 9275. It controls water pollution from industries, agriculture, domestic sources, and protects water bodies. So even if we it doesn't explicitly state hospitals. Hospitals are under industries, okay? So medical industry. Hospitals must treat wastewater first before they discharge it, and nurses must monitor patient area drains. Okay? So the fine or the penalty here is around 10,000 to 200,000 pesos a day, and that's regulated by the same agency and by LLDA or the Laguna Lake Development Authority. Laguna Lake Development Authority is like it's obviously the governing body that checks the water quality and management of a certain area. Okay? Now, they mainly focus on the areas that where Laguna Lake is directly related to. So those area include or Laguna de Bay, yes, Laguna de Bay region. Yes. So that includes Metro Manila, Rizal, Laguna, Cavite, and certain parts of Batangas po. Okay? With RA 9003, it's the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act. This mandates waste segregation at source and establishes MRFs, which is again materials recovery facilities. And this also prohibits open dumps, and that's the reason why we do not have or we do not practice open dump site anymore. So in the context of nursing, obviously that's the reason why we have color-coded bins in hospitals. And again, nurses should act as champions of waste reduction and education. For non-compliance, its penalty is around 300 to 1,000 pesos a day. And the agencies that should be overseeing this are DILG and the different LGUs. But still, many LGUs are non-compliant, and open dumping unfortunately still persists in some rural areas. We also have the RA 6969 or the Toxic and Hazardous Waste Act. Obviously, this should be included because this regulates importation, manufacture, use and disposal of hazardous chemicals, which obviously covers hospital chemicals like formaldehyde and mercury. And nurses obviously should be able to follow these um, protocols. So this is an act violated may mean 20,000 to 600,000 pesos of fine plus prison. Okay? We also have the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act, and this mandates energy efficiency in government buildings, including public hospitals. So nurse managers must support energy audits and contribute to reducing hospital carbon footprint. The agency overseeing it is the DOE or Department of Energy, and the penalty is around 50,000 pesos to 1 million pesos. And the Natural Environmental Awareness and Education Act, obviously, this act focuses on the integration of environmental education in all levels, including health professionals. So that's the reason why we have environmental science as of now. Okay? And that's also the reason why you, from time to time, get to participate in different seminars, webinars, activities related to environmental awareness. Okay? So, this one should be overseen by educational institutions like DepEd and CHED and even the ENR. Let's now proceed to the second to the last slide, which is about a case, okay, integrated case study related to the Typhoon Yolanda, internationally known as Haiyan. And this has affected Tacloban, Eastern Visayas in November 8, 2013. This resulted in 6,300 plus deaths, 12.9 million people being affected, 551 barangays destroyed, an increase in leptospirosis of around 1,140%, and 38 hospitals are actually severely damaged because of this. So let's try to look into it in different perspective: environmental issue, healthcare pollution, and legal and policy response. Environmentally, this typhoon had caused or destroyed water system and sanitation. And considering the amount of casualties, which is again 6,300 plus, mass decomposition of bodies affected air and water, leading to its contamination. It also caused saltwater intrusion into freshwater sources, and that affects what? Potable water sources, okay, or drinking water. Deforestation worsened, storm surge impact in coastal areas, and debris and displaced waste created vector breeding grounds. And again, that is according to the DOH Yolanda Health Report in November to December 2013. When it comes to healthcare pollution, because of Yolanda, hospital waste mixed with flood debris, and that exposed different sharps. So obviously that's a hazard already. Pharmaceutical supplies were contaminated to the point that these pharmaceutical supplies that are contaminated should be disposed of. So it's a waste what? Resources. Dead livestock and human remains obviously pose biohazard risk because we've reached a point where we do not know where to bury and where to place these dead livestocks. No functioning waste treatment for 3 to 6 weeks post-storm. WHO already deployed healthcare waste management units to field hospitals because of this particular concern. With legal and policy response, because of the Typhoon Yolanda, okay, and DRRM Act has been modified, where NDRMC has been activated under the Republic Act 10121. So that means we've established the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. Okay, somehow we try to modify, okay, the Disaster Risk Reduction Management Act to include this Natural Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council that has updated the way we handle disaster risk reduction and management. CCC again, Climate Change Commission, invoke RA 9729, and that's the or that's the Climate Change Act, so that um, funds can be generated to further improve the programs of CCC, because obviously typhoon, it's a natural phenomena, but in general, flooding, typhoon, all of it is quite influenced by climate change, right? DOH issued emergency healthcare waste management waiver to field hospitals, and the post-Yolanda effect pushed the passage of the RA 101 or RA 10121 amendment, or the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010. Now, just a reflection question. Again, if you want to, you're allowed to answer this one on your notebook and have it checked once we meet again. How would your nursing practice in Tacloban address all three topics areas simultaneously? What three actions would you prioritize in the first 24 hours? Sige nga, if you want to answer that, you're free to do so. Okay. The nurse as the environmental health agent and an integrated framework. So this just give us a summary of your different roles as an environmental health agent. Nurse acts as assessors, advocate, researchers, educator, protector, and coordinator. And I don't think I need to further, um, elaborate it. It's quite self-explanatory based on what we've covered so far. Assessor, you identify pollution sources near health facilities, and what? You advocate to support the different policies to protect community health. You also research by contributing what? To surveillance data that can be further processed by different institutions like DNR and DOH, so that environmental audits can be done to further improve different what? Policies. Educator. You're at the position where you're able to reach lots of people and patients. Make use of it to inform and educate them. Protector, well, obviously, you should be the number one implementer of what? DOH compliant waste management practices. And coordinator, obviously, you have to link your patient to different environmental health agencies to collaborate as well with what? Different agencies that are all for the preservation and conservation of our environment. So, key takeaways. Just to end this discussion, always take note that environment is still related with health. Air, water, and land pollution directly drive the top diseases in the Philippines. And as nurses, environmental health is patient care. If you want to take care of your patient, you take care of your environment's health. Hospital pollute too. Healthcare facilities generate 6 to 7% of hazardous waste nationally. Color-coded segregation, proper treatment, and DOH protocols are your legal and ethical duty. Always remember that. Laws exist and you should know them. Republic Act 8749, 9275, 9003, 6969, and others protect communities and regulate hospitals. Ignorance is not a defense. Nurses must know and apply these laws. Policies are imperfect. Many Philippine environmental laws suffer from weak enforcement, and nurses bridge the gap by serving as advocates, educators, and local watchdogs, like what I mentioned a while ago. Lastly, you are the link. The nurse is uniquely positioned between policy, community, and clinical care. Your voice, documentation, and actions drive real environmental health outcomes. And that's it for me today. I hope you learned something new. Thank you very much.